Thank you. Thank you. So we are down to the next to the last class. And we're going to talk today about implementing analytics tools for impact, which is a big part of what we want to do. My co-host, Kathy Waterworth, I thought about just letting her do this today. She has done so much work in this particular area recently, it seems like, and we will get her to demo a little bit for us. As I mentioned, we've got one last class, and wondering if you have your certification scheduled. If you don't, let's get it done. You should be close enough now that you can get it scheduled and feel pretty good about taking the certification. So today's focus, we're going to talk about reporting for impact. We're going to talk about the dashboards that decision makers need, and then visualizing data. And reporting for impact is a fundamental piece of any impact measurement for nonprofits. Nonprofit Cloud provides out-of-the-box reports that share information on donors, grants, memberships, campaign ROIs, and more. So just like with standard Salesforce, you can edit or create new reports in the report builder. Nonprofit Success Pack also provides reports that will be the basis of dashboards. So we'll look at those in the next session when we learn about identifying and using helpful dashboards. But you see these 4 folders specifically that have constituent reports, dashboard reports, fundraising reports, and then the health check. And the health check is always great fun. But most packages that you install, such as the program management module, the outbound funds modules, or Volunteers for Salesforce, also come with pre-packaged reports that are available in Nonprofit Cloud. So you'll see those contained in the same place. They're probably in a folder of their own. With so many different options, how do you decide? So best practices for reports in Nonprofit Cloud don't differ from the standard best practices that Salesforce administrators already know. Some examples that are critical are as follows. Always start in a sandbox, even when building reports. That probably doesn't happen a lot, especially for reports, but it is a best practice. Be strategic. Don't create a new report every time somebody asks for one, right? For every need, there are a lot of reports that you can filter in specific ways that work for a big group of people. The fewer reports you have, probably the better. Just because then you're going to have to search through all of them. It's a nightmare every time you try and reassign permissions, do the things that need to be done in your organization. But if you can group them based on jobs to be done or other roles, then look at it with a little bit of strategy. The first thing I say when anyone asks for a report is why? Why do you need that report? What is it you want to accomplish? And so at least push back with that one question. Organize reports appropriately so that users have easy access to the reports they need. And this goes back to the challenge of having 15 million reports. The same thing is true for list views, right? If you've ever been in an org where everybody can create their own list views and edit everybody else's. And I got a case just yesterday where one of my colleagues was like, so my things aren't showing up the way they should in my list view. And somebody had changed the filters because it was a publicly available list view. So be sure that the right people have the right access, right? And then know that a lot of these reports are the basis of a dashboard. And so if those reports get changed, then your dashboards get messed up as well. So following these guidelines can help us consider how we leverage reports that already exist and when to create a new report entirely, right? Sometimes you might even have to create a new report type, but we'll go into that in just a little bit. So I want to share with you, if I can, and I may let Kathy do hers first, because Kathy has a user ID report and what I call the sleuth report. I don't know if she can do the troubleshooting sleuth report, but I'm going to let her share her screen and share with you a couple of reports that she's built that have been really helpful. And you're on mute, Kathy.
Of course I am.
Mhm.
Hold on, just a sec. Where? Hold on. Why is? Sorry, I'm just making sure I'm grabbing. I have way too many screens. And that's, can you see a report? Why am I getting a whiteboard? What is going on? Okay, can you see my report here? Nope, apparently not. Okay, let's try this again. Now?
Yes.
Okay. Gosh. I don't know. Somehow I'm getting the whiteboard showing up. I did not press whiteboard. Anyways, so in my job where I'm sort of in a bunch of different orgs all the time, and a lot of the time it's doing some cleanup with, especially with regards to record ownerships. One of my favorite, I would call it one of my favorite reports because it's one I probably create everywhere I go, is an active user report. And I've adjusted this lately so you don't have email and thing access, but I usually group it by active. So active and inactive would be the groups. Have the person's last name, their username or email address, their role, their profile, their aliases. Also, this is a good way to, this is also out of a sandbox, which is why there aren't many logins. But their last login, so you can see how active some of these supposed active users are, and then your user ID. And it's always a good idea to, on the particular object, is to use a formula field to create the 18-character ID, because this is not case sensitive, whereas the user ID is. And, you know, if you've ever seen a whole list of these, you could have one JL47 and the J, the L, and the 7 or Z, sorry, C. Choose that one, of course. Can be upper or lower case, and you can have several different combinations that look the same, but these are very crucial to which ID it is. Whereas if you have the 18-character ID, these last three will decide what these are, regardless of how they show up in, say, a spreadsheet or something. As I said, I find this one particularly useful for changing record ID when somebody has left, or to also take a look at are there users who, just sort of to keep track of users who aren't logging in, and do they really need to have an ID if they aren't? As I said, this is from a sandbox, so obviously the logins aren't current or up to date on this because many of these don't have access. Another thing I like to do, again, I don't have a particular favorite report because I'm usually building reports based on, there's a problem a client is having, there isn't an obvious reason to what is causing the problem. So this is one I recently did, in that they were having problem with they had payments or they had revenue opportunities, but the GAUs weren't showing up. So I went through and I did the different types of, grouped it by the opportunity types and their stages, the names, just so I could refer back to it when I needed to. And I just threw in every field I thought might be useful. Sometimes you overdo it, but I usually find if I miss one, I usually go back and add it anyways. But things like the payment number, the date, who created it, is it, you know, because if there's a pattern that it's happening by everything that's created automatically, as opposed to created internally, or vice versa. It's created internally as opposed to automatically. Is that where the problem is happening? And, just every little bit of information you can put in. Usually when I'm doing these ones, I, just because it's ours, I do that. And I also keep it in the private folder. So it's not, somebody else doesn't look at it and go, what the heck's this going on? If it does become a useful report that the client may be able to use later on, then yes, I will change the sharing settings on it afterwards. But usually if I'm done with it, if I don't think I'll need it again, I will delete the reports just so they don't take up space. And yes, well, best practice is to create something in a sandbox first. I've just been working in the sandbox and trying to create something totally different, and realize that sometimes all the information isn't there to do it, but at least you can get a start on whatever you are creating before you put it into production. Because sometimes you're looking for, hey, what was billed in the last quarter, and depending how old your sandbox is, last quarter information isn't going to show up if you refreshed your sandbox, 2 years ago. So another good reason to keep your sandboxes up to date or refreshed as frequently as you can manage.
Nice
Mm.
job, Kathy.
And that's it for my report.
Thank you so much. I know that you've been doing those a lot lately, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. To look, and I don't know how often or how many of you have taken a look at more than one instance to see, or taking a look at your instance even to see what, well, sorry, trying to talk and do something at the same time. To see what is actually there. And are you seeing in the NPSP the list of reports? Is that what you're seeing, Kathy, on my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Because if you go into all the folders for reports, you'll see that there are those 4 that we looked at. In this case, there are also outbound fund reports, program management embedded reports, program management reports that are unpackaged. So a lot of different ones. Obviously, all these can be edited and changed, and constituent reports. I think this is where the membership reports, memberships over time, just to give you an idea. Even something simple like changing the way that the chart looks right on your report. So you can edit this to, it's probably not going to show me a chart here because I don't have anything in it, but being able to edit it, and maybe you rename it version 2 or current version or something, so that you can differentiate and leave your original report in place intact, so you can go back and work with it again. So just go ahead.
I was going to add, if you think you need to create a new report and you start typing new report and you start typing, say, for example, memberships, one nice newer, more recent feature is that if you start typing memberships, it's and you don't find something and you click to so just hit return.
Okay.
Nope, it's not. Oh, come on, it's not doing what I'm thinking. Anyways, it does at some point when you start creating it, okay, just select a report type. So, I was gonna select, no, just choose one of the ones in the right column. Just accounts and batch, for example. Okay. So when you start to do that, it will actually, if there are reports that already exist, it will show up in that list on the right-hand side. So
Nice.
you may not be able to find it immediately, but as you start trying to create a new one, you can see ones that may already exist that may suit what you're looking for.
Lovely.
So
Good,
double
good.
check that if you don't find it in this, because sometimes this gets a little overwhelming. Or you
Good
just
pro tip.
don't type the right word in.
Good pro tip. I love it. Okay, so reporting for impact. So just a couple of more pro tips on top of that, right? So if you're working in an older version of Salesforce or Nonprofit Success Pack where it's been installed, you may have to install the reports. There's a great NPSP report workbook that there's a link to in our slide deck. Remember to share the appropriate reports with the right folks, right? And start with the available reports, customize as needed rather than create new reports. And you can even create new reports types if you have to, if you're trying to connect it to something outside NPSP. And charts in a report don't have to be the same as the visual in the dashboard. So again, think about who is going to be using this, right? What's the end goal and who the purpose is there, which segues us into dashboards, especially for decision makers. I'm a very visual learner. I want to see things at a glance and not usually, generally, dig down into the details of anything. So if you've got an executive director that you're trying to provide information for, or a board of directors maybe that you just want them to be able to see a dashboard on a regular basis that gives them the big picture, that's what they're looking for, then dashboards are definitely the way to go. NPSP also provides 4 dashboards, straight out of the box. 3 are specifically analysis based, which is one of the areas where your executives and your boards will want to, that's what they'll want to see. The 4th is for forecasting. And again, an executive director is going to want to see that. Volunteers for Salesforce and the program management module also come with standard dashboards. But these tools are only as good as the data behind them. Any errors become exacerbated during the roll-up process and when formulas are applied. So fundraisers and executives rely on the Nonprofit Cloud Administrator to provide good data in the dashboards that have been created to show critical trends and information right away. So if you remember the work that we did in Chapter 7, is change difficult for your organization, and, Lesson 8 about requirements and user stories and business process, then we want to be sure that whatever dashboards we're creating has SMART metrics, right, that define the reports in the dashboard. So SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. Refreshing the dashboard, if you've ever tried to do that on your phone, if you're using the mobile Salesforce, refreshing a dashboard, sometimes it takes forever. So being sure that you have the information that's needed in the way that it needs to be is super important for your executives. Out of those dashboards that are included in Nonprofit Success Pack, the development and analysis dashboard is what we see here. And this provides information on giving by account record type, opportunity record type, and GAU for this year and for the last 3 years. This dashboard also shows the top 25 donations from organizations and households, plus the 25 most recent gifts. So at a glance, we can see that all of this is for fundraising teams and executives to see, weigh, and pivot, if needed based on this data. And everything that we have done up to this point, the weeks that we've spent, all really comes down to, in my mind, as an executive, this, right? I need to be able to see what's going on in our organization so I can make the appropriate decisions and either ask for more information, but this is that top level, where's it coming from, what's happening here, right? So a second dashboard that's available is the NPSP campaign ROI analysis. And this surfaces important data like total contributions per campaign, total gifts versus actual cost, the actual ROI, the cost per donor, the cost per dollar donated, return on initial investment, average gift, number of gifts. And it shows which campaigns are actually contributing the most to fundraising dollars. So the organization and executives can tweak spending to maximize those effective campaigns. An incredibly wise business decision altogether. Another dashboard is the giving range analysis dashboard, and it shows how the donated amount ranges for this year, last year, and 2 years ago. So it's a great benchmark tool, right, to measure current success. The development forecasting dashboard is very familiar and similar to dashboards that we use in standard Salesforce. Shows open opportunities by stage, the record type, and campaign. It also reveals overdue payments, so if there are pledges, upcoming payments, delinquent accounts, and then the top 25, and they say Libunt and Cybunt, and I can't tell you what the, it's last year.
But unfortunately not this year.
Thank you. I always forget the acronym because it's one of those accounting acronyms, which Kathy has a background in acronyms. She does, but she has a background in accounting. So super helpful. And those again are built-in reports that come with Nonprofit Success Pack that are super easy to pull up and show. So dashboards. But on to my very favorite part. I'm a very visual learner. I need to see things and actually interact with them kinetically to learn. And all the work we've done, as we mentioned, so far has been to ensure that we have that data and that we can scale everything we're doing. In August 2019, Salesforce acquired Tableau, which is considered the #1 analytics platform available. If you've ever used it, hopefully you love it. I do. The Tableau Foundation, like the Salesforce Foundation before it, donates Tableau Desktop to small nonprofits and NGOs. So you can apply for licensing at tableau.com/foundation/license donations. And we've got that link, I'm sure, in the slide deck here. But it allows you to see or visualize the data that can help users see trends, outliers, highlight what the data is saying. You see, these are a lot more colorful, a lot more flexible in the way you can lay out data. And if you're tracking and reporting on impact, Tableau to visualize that nonprofit cloud data can be incredibly helpful. Obviously, there's a link here to the workbook for donor insights. And that's what I'm showing you an example of on this slide, is how Tableau can visualize that information for your executives, for your team in the nonprofit world. Tableau also has what they call accelerators that are available for both nonprofit fundraising in NPSP and program management module in NPSP. The accelerators speed up the process of visualizing data as much as the pre-built reports and dashboards do. And that's what it really is. It's almost like a pre-built dashboard for you so that you can edit and change them as necessary to reflect the goals of your organization. It's super easy to see the important statistics around fundraising for this organization. Take a look at the year-to-date revenue, and I apologize that this is as small as it is, but you see that's really a phenomenal amount of information just at a glance, right? You can see the organization is only at 25.1% of the year-end goal, which in not quite the end of the first quarter, that's not bad, but it's an at-a-glance thing. The donor state, where are your donors coming from? Lots of information here presented in a very simple and easy to read way. Visualizing data is critical for nonprofit executives to leverage data to make the best mission-driven decisions for their organization. As a nonprofit cloud practitioner, providing the most useful way, and that may be dashboards, it may be a Tableau overview, is critical. I would encourage you to look at the homework and go through and do the trailheads that are there. You can get a trial org for Tableau simply and easily and set those things up and take a look at them. It may be something you want to use for your own organization, but it's definitely something you need to know about for the Nonprofit Cloud Consultant certification. Next week will be our last week, and we're going to talk about ongoing data management and best practices. And Kathy, you want to take us through the homework and resources? You're on mute.
Again. Yeah, actually, I've added a new, there's a new one at the bottom. It's a brand new trail. And the reason, as I told Melissa earlier, how I know it's a brand new trail is because I usually have all the NPSP modules done. So it's like, where did that come from? So it is from a few weeks ago, what we were dealing with, but I threw that in there just because it's new. But yeah, it's a lot of on the reports and dashboards and Tableau basics. Tableau's fun once you start once you start understanding it, it is a lot of fun. We put in a link into the new announcement that came out today about the new nonprofit cloud. There is a nonprofit coffee chat. It's a virtual community group meeting that meets, I don't know, once a month or so. That's run by Melissa. But that's coming up this Thursday at 11 Central, 12 Eastern. We have one more chapter left in the book if you've got it, so you can read chapter 16 for next week. The office hours is this week at 1:30, and then of course, as usual, we will attach the video replay when it's ready and post it all up on the Llama site.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy. I'm going to stop sharing and end our recording here. If I can figure out how to do that.